Good morning, everyone. As every American knows, our country faces an unprecedented border crisis. Since Joe Biden was sworn into office, our borders have been overrun by a record number of illegal immigrants, the direct product of the Biden administration's failed open border policies. We know that fentanyl is the leading cause of death for adults aged 18 to 45. This catastrophic border crisis is a national security crisis, an economic crisis, and a humanitarian crisis. Every district is a border district. Every state is a border state. In fact, in my home district in northern New York, we have seen an over 800% increase in illegal crossings in the past year in the Swanton sector. And with Title 42 set to expire tomorrow, Border Patrol officers are reporting an unprecedented surge at our southern border, totaling over 26,000 migrant apprehensions in just 72 hours. This is unsustainable. And as Joe Biden continues to fail the American people, House Republicans are committed to solving this issue with the Secure the Border Act, which will finish the wall, advance border technology, and support our brave Border Patrol agents. And it will deliver on a key pillar of our commitment to America, a nation that is safe. And as we have done each week, I'm proud to highlight two of our freshmen newly elected members, both from the state of Texas, and both who are going to discuss the importance of the Secure the Border bill that we will pass this week. I'm going to first turn it over to Congressman Morgan Latrell from Texas 8th District.
Oh, great. Good morning, and Chairman, thank you so much. My name is Morgan Latrell. I'm from the 8th District of Texas, which is just above Houston, and my district is actually the landing zone for the flood of illegal immigrants coming across the border. Now, this bill that we're pushing out and we're going to be voting on tomorrow is great. I'd like to thank Chairman Green for his hard work and the committee itself. It's a step in the right direction. In my district alone, the fentanyl deaths are categorically increasing every single year. That's a bad thing. We are seeing a surge of illegal immigrants landing in our district. We have a neighborhood in my district of 50,000 illegal immigrants. That has to stop. Tomorrow, when Title 42 ends, I'm talking with family members and friends that work in CBP, and they are extremely concerned because you have to realize there's been over 5 million illegal immigrants crossed this. That's more than the state of Louisiana and Mississippi's population combined. That's North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska combined. We could create an entirely new state on just illegal immigrants that have come across the border. That has to stop. It is cratering the infrastructure at our southern border, and this bill addresses that appropriately. And with that, I'll pass it off to Ms. Monica de la Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz, and my district lies in the southernmost tip of Texas, including McAllen, Texas, which will very quickly become ground zero for the illegal immigration that will really surge and come to a surge after Title 42 is lifted. I want you all to understand that this district has one of the most Hispanic counties in the entire nation. We are concerned. I'm a mother of 2 children. I live in the district, and I'm concerned about the amount of fentanyl that's coming through. I'm concerned about the inhumane treatment by the Biden administration and his failed border policies on the immigrants that have been coming through. Between April 16th and April 30th, we had 30,000 illegal immigrants cross through the RGV sector. 30,000, 20,000 of those assigned to Brownsville, Texas. My sources in the Mexico area tell me that between Matamoros and Reynosa, we have 50,000 illegal immigrants waiting to cross our border the moment Title 42 is lifted. The Biden administration has failed the American people. He has failed our Border Patrol agents. He has failed our border communities, and he has failed America with his open border policy. But the GOP here will pass this week H.R. 2, which will put order on the border and finally secure our borders and bring our immigrants in a humane manner. Thank you.
We will now hear from our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Elise. Americans around the country have seen month after month the crisis at the border get worse. And they've been looking to this administration and calling on this administration to do their job and secure America's border. But they failed time and time again when we pressed the Biden administration to take basic steps to secure America's border. They've refused to acknowledge the problem, let alone to address the problem. Most of the problems we're seeing at the border were created by Joe Biden himself, starting on his very first day in office as president, when he sent a message throughout the world that America's border is open by doing things like halting construction of the wall, reinstating catch and release, terminating the Remain in Mexico policy, the Northern Triangle agreements. Those were all things that were working to establish a rule of law. America's the most generous nation in the world in terms of immigration policy. We allow more people to come into our country every year legally than any other nation in the world. And yet when you have an undermined rule of law, where more than twice the number of people who are allowed to come in legally every year are coming in illegally, we don't know what the real number is because the Biden administration won't even share it. We know of a number of people on the terrorist watch list who have actually been caught coming across our southern border. We don't know about the gotaways, how many people on the terrorist watch list that are coming here to do us harm, and not just from South and Central America. This is a global problem. Over 140 different countries have been identified having people come over our southern border illegally. This is a national security crisis that is clearly affecting our immediate southern border colleagues in their districts, but it's affecting every district in America. Every town in America is now a border town because President Biden has brought this crisis to them. When they're sending people all over the country by dark of night on buses, on airplanes, not even alerting local authorities to know how many people are going to be coming and where they're going to stay, which schools they're going to be going to. The New York Times just reported a few days ago that more than 85,000 young kids are missing who have come across our border illegally. President Biden was in charge of tracking them, putting them in homes all around the country, and yet they've lost 85,000 young people. How can the Biden administration, with a straight face, look themselves in the mirror and allow this scandal to continue? But yet they do. And so as House Republicans, we said we're not going to sit on the sidelines like President Biden has, creating this problem. We're going to actually work on solving this problem. Border Act, a bill that actually focuses on solving the problem so we can get back to the rule of law and have a secure border in America, reestablish a legal path to come into this country like so many great immigrants have, like my great-grandfathers, and so many of our families came to this country seeking opportunity in the American dream. When you undermine the rule of law and create this crisis where now every single day in America, 300 young people are dying. Americans are dying because of the drugs being brought across our southern border, because Joe Biden has turned operational control of our southern border over to the Mexican drug cartels. He's allowed it to happen. We've embedded, I think all of us have gone down to the border. Most of our conference members have gone down to the southern border. I've embedded with Border Patrol agents. They'll tell you what the problems are. And in fact, we've listened and taken a lot of those ideas and put them into this legislation. We worked with all members of our conference to come up with a bill that will actually solve the problem. And what does the president do? He issues a veto threat because he wants an open southern border. The American people are sick and disgusted by this dereliction of his duty. So that's why Congress has acted, just like we did to address the debt ceiling 2 weeks ago. This is something we've been working on for months. Speaker McCarthy reached out early in our new majority to the president to address the debt ceiling before the midnight hour. You know, as Janet Yellen can pick the X date and maybe it's June 1st, we didn't wait. We started taking action. The president said that he would meet with Speaker McCarthy. It had been about 3 months had gone by where the president was in hiding. And finally yesterday, as we're just days away from hitting that X date, does he finally sit down with congressional leaders, and still doesn't have any plans that he's put on the table as an alternative to what we passed. We passed a bill through the House. There is no bill in the Senate. I'd love to see the bill Chuck Schumer has to address the debt ceiling crisis, but I guess he wants default because he won't even bring a bill to the floor to pass on his own. And so if he wants default, we don't. And so we took action to address this crisis. And it's not just the debt ceiling crisis, where the credit card of the nation was maxed out by Joe Biden's spending over the last 2 years. It's also the spending problem in Washington that got us here. We addressed that too in our bill, with real reforms to spending, with actual economic growth so we can get our economy moving again, to get people back to work, paying into the system so we can strengthen programs like Social Security, which have been undermined under the Biden policies. So I would encourage the president to not just sit and call people names and spread misinformation about the legislation that was passed. If he doesn't agree with our bill, he needs to put his own alternative on the table about how to solve Washington's spending problem as we're dealing with the debt ceiling. With that, we'll be happy to take questions.
Another bill you guys have up on the floor this week is about extending the statute of limitations on pandemic unemployment benefit fraud. George Santos has been indicted. One of his indictments is for unemployment benefit fraud. Does that undermine the message you're trying to send with that bill? And then also, given all those indictments of Mr. Santos, a question for you and Chairwoman Stefanik is, should he resign?
So first of all, in regard to George Santos, he was already removed from all of his committees. There is a legal process. The charges just came out. We just saw some of them this morning. And so in America, there's a presumption of innocence, but they're serious charges. He's going to have to go through the legal process. But we're going to continue to work to root out fraud. And there's lots of it. And we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud in many federal programs. We've pointed this out. I mean, they're not even checking Social Security numbers. So you've got reports of people even in foreign countries getting taxpayer money for things that should be only available to Americans who are coming on hard times, not to go to drug cartels or to people that just want to bilk the system. And so I hope Democrats will support us in rooting out fraud. They haven't shown an interest in it so far, but we're going to bring legislation to continue.
Does it undermine the message that you're trying to send with this bill, though, with this indictment of one of your...
Obviously, he's going to have to face the charges that he has. Again, he's got a presumption of innocence, but that court process is going to play itself out. But he's already been removed from all of his committees. And I don't know if anybody else has.
Sure, I just want to add to that. As I've said from the very beginning on questions on this subject, this legal process is going to play itself out. Unfortunately, this is not the first time a member of Congress from either party has been indicted. There are a set of rules, and as the Majority Leader stated, he voluntarily had stepped down from his committees. We are committed to making sure that we root out any fraud when it comes to unemployment pandemic assistance, and we're working to have support from our conference, and it's good policy, and we urge the Democrats to vote in support of it.
Yes, in the back.
Thank you so much. The NDAA markups were supposed to start this week. Republicans on the committee postponed them indefinitely. Is this related to the debt ceiling debate? And if not, do you know what's going on there, why the delay was enacted?
Yeah, right now as the debt ceiling negotiations are going on, if you even want to call them negotiations, again, we've passed a bill to address the debt ceiling. One of the things that we included was reestablishing what the amount of spending should be in Washington. We bring it back to what it was pre-pandemic. We, again, have laid out what that should be. But as we're in these final talks, I mean, there might only be 2 weeks left before we actually hit the date. So I'm hopeful that as the Speaker meets with the President and the other congressional leaders on Friday, that they can get some real specifics that get us closer to an agreement. And so for now, we're going to wait and see how that process plays out before starting the NDAA. But we've already been doing work on what those policies would look like on the National Defense Authorization Act.
Can I say as a task member?
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just want to say, since I am on the House Armed Services Committee, we've been working diligently at the subcommittee level and full committee level. And just as the Majority Leader said, we will be prepared to pass a robust NDAA. So when you talk about indefinitely, the NDAA is the one bill that every single year we've been able to deliver and pass, certainly since I've been in Congress, but for decades.
Speaker McCarthy scheduled an event later today. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was scheduled in the Congressional Visitor Center to hold an event on Nakba, which is the day that Palestinians remarked the founding of Israel as a catastrophe. McCarthy's event is blocking that. It's a bipartisan briefing on the U.S.-Israel relationship. Any comments on that move by Speaker McCarthy to occupy that space during that time? and then on the fact that Tlaib was holding that event in the first place.
Well, the party in the majority is able to hold hearings and meetings, and I applaud Speaker McCarthy for holding a briefing for members to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Israel. America was, I think, the very first country to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. We've been such tight allies throughout their existence, and we've seen attacks and growing anti-Semitism even here in Congress, and we've been very vocal speaking out against any anti-Semitism. But I think it's important that we continue to celebrate and share with all of our members why it's so important that we have this special bond with Israel. The Speaker just came back from actually addressing the Knesset a few days ago, which is very historic. I think Newt Gingrich was the last speaker to address the Knesset. He and Prime Minister Netanyahu both spoke, and we've had a very special relationship. It's been very strongly bipartisan. Obviously you've got some elements of the Democrat Party who have become vocal against Israel. But again, we're going to stand up against any kind of anti-Semitism or any kind of attacks against Israel, and I applaud the Speaker for having a briefing that all members are able to come to. Thank you all. See you on the floor. It's a strong